Long before a swipe could set your heart racing, finding love meant navigating real-life circles, tapping friends for introductions, reading a nervous glance across a crowded house party, or building courage just to ask for a phone number on paper. Gen X daters forged connections in malls, coffee shops, and Friday night diners, relying on gentle signals and reputation whispers, never a digital profile. Every relationship grew slowly, over landline calls carefully timed to dodge parents, handwritten notes slipped through lockers, and the hand-picked songs of a mixtape, each gesture revealing commitment. With no instant messages, every encounter asked for bravery, every label going steady and exclusive carried real weight, and even breakups required looking someone in the eye. For Gen X, resilience was built on facing rejection, and intimacy emerged not from apps, but through discovery, awkward moments, and true effort. What did it take to fall in love when every step demanded vulnerability in the real world? The story begins at the heart of those circles, where eye contact sparked possibilities, and the hardest part was daring to say hello. Introductions in the Gen X era rarely happened by accident. At the heart of every gathering, whether it was a crowded school hallway, a bustling office break room, or a neighbor's living room on a Saturday night, stood the connector. This was the friend who seemed to know everyone, the one who vouched for newcomers with a quiet nod or a whispered story. Before anyone exchanged phone numbers or shared a dance, reputation traveled ahead through casual conversation and gentle gossip. Hosts at house parties would quietly confirm that he was a friend of Mark's, or that she was in my English class and super reliable. In schools and workplaces, a subtle endorsement from a mutual friend could make all the difference, smoothing the way for a first hello. Even at block parties and community events, introductions carried the weight of collective memory. Someone always remembered who brought the best mixtapes to last year's barbecue or who never missed a volunteer shift. These social circles created a sense of safety and belonging, where every approach was cushioned by the knowledge that someone had already vouched for you. For Gen X, love started with a network of trust, where the bravest act was simply stepping into the circle and letting your story be told. A glance across a crowded room could carry more meaning than 1,000 swipes. For Gen X, the first move was a delicate dance of subtle signals and nerve. Eye contact lingered just a moment longer. A shy smile flickered, or a laugh echoed from the far side of a living room. Sometimes, two people would find themselves mirroring each other's posture, leaning in at the same angle, matching crossed arms, or shifting weight from foot to foot in quiet unison. These silent cues spoke volumes, inviting a conversation without a word. Stepping forward meant risking embarrassment, but it also meant possibility. The initiator, often fueled by a surge of courage, might break the silence by saying, "Hi, I am Chris," or by asking about the music playing. If the moment felt right, the conversation would drift closer, voices dropping as the rest of the party faded into background noise. Proximity became its own language. A hand brushed a sleeve, laughter grew warmer, and suddenly, the distance between two people disappeared. When a scrap of paper or a napkin changed hands, it was not just a phone number, it was a promise to call, to follow up, to keep the connection alive. That exchange carried weight. It meant someone had risked a little, read the signs, and decided to see what might happen next. Weekends often revolved around familiar gathering spots, each one quietly shaping the way connections unfolded. The suburban mall stood at the center of Gen X social life, a sprawling maze of food courts, arcades, and clothing stores where friends drifted in packs, hoping to cross paths with someone new. Malls offered a sense of freedom, especially for teenagers whose families had settled in the suburbs during the post-war boom. Hanging out by the record shop or sharing fries at the food court, small groups mingled and separated, giving chance a real shot. Coffee shops and diners served as cozy outposts, where a booth by the window or a late-night counter seat invited conversations that stretched for hours. Community centers, church halls, and local parks filled up with volunteers, league games, and dances, each event another chance for eyes to meet across a room. These everyday places, including malls, restaurants, and weekend haunts, became the backdrop for romance, offering endless opportunities for spontaneous encounters and slow-building chemistry, all woven into the architecture of daily life. A phone number on a napkin was just the beginning. The real test came later, when the sustainer, always the planner, picked up the phone and dialed, heart pounding with every ring. For Gen X, the landline was a lifeline, but it came with its own set of rules. Calls had to be timed just right, after dinner, before parents took over the line, and never too late. In houses with only one phone, privacy was a luxury, and siblings or parents could pick up at any moment, turning a whispered conversation into a family affair. Long-distance romance meant watching the clock and counting the cost. 15 cents a minute in the mid-1980s was enough to make every word matter. Scheduling a call wasn't just about logistics, it was a promise to be there, to show up on time, and to listen. The anticipation built throughout the day, turning a simple ring into an event. Without texts or instant messages, every conversation depended on tone, pauses, and laughter echoing down the line. In that space between voices, connections deepened, built on patience, planning, and the courage to keep calling back. First dates in the Gen X era often felt like stepping onto a stage with no script and no rehearsal. There was no profile to scan beforehand, no list of favorite movies or clever bios to break the ice. Instead, two people would meet up, maybe at a local diner, maybe for a walk through the mall, armed with little more than a name and a few scattered details from a mutual friend. The first few minutes could be a comedy of nerves, one person talking too much about their pet iguana, the other accidentally spilling soda across the table. Awkward silences stretched out, only to be broken by a shared laugh at a bad joke or a clumsy attempt to split the check. What mattered most was the ability to improvise, to pick up on a smile or a raised eyebrow and steer the conversation somewhere new. Sometimes, the chemistry was instant, a spark over a favorite band or a memory of the same arcade game. Other times, both people realized within minutes that things just weren't clicking. Either way, each encounter was a lesson in reading the room, adapting on the fly, and finding humor in the unpredictability of meeting someone for real without a digital safety net. A relationship in the Gen X era was measured not just by words, but by the time and care poured into small, tangible gestures. A mixtape wasn't just a playlist, it was an act of devotion. Each cassette took hours to make, with songs chosen for their lyrics, their mood, or the memory they sparked. Sequencing tracks mattered, as did the scribbled notes and handmade sleeve art that wrapped the tape in personal meaning. Handwritten letters and folded notes carried voices across town or across the country, their ink sometimes smudged by nervous hands or the rush to meet the mail. Even a simple memo, "Meet at the food court at 5 p.m., felt weighty. It might be pinned to a bulletin board or slipped into a backpack as a reminder that someone was thinking ahead. Dates were mapped out days in advance, coordinated without the help of digital calendars, relying on trust and anticipation. Each artifact, whether a cassette, a letter, or a ticket stub, became a keepsake, proof that effort and intention were woven into every step of falling in love. A spoken promise carried real weight. When two people decided to call themselves a couple, it meant something public and deliberate. The terms going steady or exclusive weren't tossed around lightly. They marked a turning point, a shared understanding that others would notice and respect. Sometimes a relationship came with a token, matching bracelets, a borrowed jacket, or a mixtape traded back and forth, each one a quiet signal to the world that a line had been crossed. These milestones mattered. Census data from 1990 shows the median age at first marriage rising, 24.9 for men and 22.5 for women, reflecting a generation that took its time, letting the label settle in before moving forward. In this world, the commitment was clear, and so were the risks if things fell apart. Every attempt at connection in the Gen X era was an exercise in patience and courage. Facing rejection meant feeling it in real time, no screens to hide behind, no silent unfriending. Each awkward pause or missed signal was a lesson in resilience, teaching how to recover, try again, and keep the conversation going. The slow pace of handwritten notes and scheduled calls demanded thoughtful words and careful listening. Over time, these rituals built a quiet confidence, the ability to read a room, to handle disappointment with grace, and to find humor in the unpredictable dance of getting to know someone face to face. These analog rituals left Gen X fluent in reading the room, listening deeply, and building trust face to face. These skills still shape how they connect and love today. In a world where swipes replace glances, Gen X's analog love stories remind us what is lost when courage and real presence fade. Today, genuine connection still depends on showing up, listening, risking, waiting. Sometimes, the boldest move is reaching out with nothing but hope. Share your own story below.